or everybody could
Yeah, I'm
just
very
stand
sorry for all
next to
the
the TV.
technical problems today.
This is just startup things, but we'll get there later. So, in my case, I started following like large language models in 2017, which is earlier than most people. And this is actually where everything, like from ChatGPT, everything started in 2017 with this paper. Like up to this point, we had like neural networks and other stuff, but it wasn't really taking off. It wasn't. You could train an AI to maybe recognize an image, but that was about it. And that all changed in 2017 when Google released this paper, and it's called "Attention is All You Need." So, what is the basic idea of this neural network? It was actually created for translation, and you can see here what sometimes happens if you translate stuff. For example, an international developer conference in France is Conférence Internationale des Développeurs. Like stuff moves around. Like the order of the words is different. So you can translate the words, but that doesn't make sense. And to solve this, Google tried to place attention on words. Do we have an example? There's like a small example. For example, if you have this entire sentence, Jack got on a plane to his holiday destination, the stewardess went up to. What's the most likely word? The most likely word is him. Like, we know it's a pronoun, and we know it's his and Jack. So we know which pronoun it is. But if you just look at the last 5 words the stewardess went up to, anyone's guess. Like, you need to go back in text to find the right context. This is exactly what the attention model does. So it builds up like this entire context, which can be like currently like up to 80,000 words, and it makes pointers back into the text and to focus its attention for the next word on like things that happened way in the past. The first larger model that caught my eye was GPT-2, which was released in 2019, and this was the first time an AI could write like clear English text that you couldn't really differentiate between written by a human or written by a machine. And this was already just 1.5 billion parameters, so not the largest, but for the time it was incredibly big. And the successor GPT-3 already had like 175 billion parameters. So that's 100-fold what it had before. I actually used GPT-3 back in 2021 to generate my slides for DevOps, developer conference in Belgium. This wasn't the chat interface, it was just prediction of the next word. So what I had to do was like give it some context. So I said, well, the topic of my talk is set solvers. Next slide is this. And then it just started blurting out words. And it actually makes sense. Like these examples, they work, they're correct. And I was like blown away by this. And I showed it to everybody around me. Nobody gave a damn. Basically in 2021, that's 2 years ago, nobody understood this or grasped how big this is gonna be. And it wasn't until like the end of 2022, they released ChatGPT, which is basically the same thing, just in a chat interface. And it was publicly available, so anybody could go to the website and use it. And suddenly it exploded. Like you got these news articles that it goes to law school and it passed law school and it's so smart. It's basically the same thing as we had in 2021, but it's a chat interface now. And suddenly the whole world goes crazy. So what can I do with this? I use it like on a regular basis, like every day for my work. I just ask it stuff. So for example, I had a project with a MongoDB database which had like a huge JSON file, and we wanted to transform this into JPA entities. And I would just ask it, well, here is the big JSON file, write the Java code for me. And it writes the Java code. You can do smart things like, for example here, I say omit the getters and setters. So my IDE can generate the getters and setters. I don't need the context of ChatGPT to do that. But it just writes the code. I just tell it what I need, and it writes it for me. And this is just the beginning. From there, you can just continue writing stuff. So in the first example, I created a person.java based on a base entity which we already had, which had the ID and the other stuff. And I could just say, well, this person has a date of birth. Can you write a method for me to give the age, the current age? Yeah, sure. You get a method to get the current age of the person. What can you do after that? Well, generate a test for me. Sure, you can generate a test for me. And other stuff. But it doesn't stop there. Just continue asking it. Like, we've got this getAge method. How do we test the boundaries? What else can we test? Null dates. Sure. If you have this conversation and you can even prompt it to be if you say, well, from now on, you are a very experienced senior developer that's reviewing my code, and I want you to be extra careful that everything's correct, and I want you to check all the assumptions I might have made. If you prompt it that way, then you get back this incredible pair programmer. Like, I would rather work with this pair programmer than with some human colleagues. It's really good. It's really good. So if you are not using this already, please do this. But there are actually better tools now. They're coming out. Also, if you have a new framework or some concepts that you don't know how it works, well, you can do it like this. Very good. So GPT-3 was good. GPT-4 even better. One of the things they added, but we cannot access it right now, that's the multimodality. It's a large language model, but it's also an image model. It understands images. So if you give it this image and you ask it what's about to happen, it will tell you the glove will fall, will hit the wooden plank, and the ball will fly up. This is really important. This means that, one, it can understand images. Two, it can build a model of our world. It understands gravity. It understands seesaw motions. It understands all these things. Like, this is not a typical, like, there's no example like this in the training set. It just understands this stuff. And for some reason, we all just accept now that computers can talk English and understand us. Like, a year ago, people wouldn't even understand that. Now this is normal. Like, machines can reason about our world and can predict like future events based on an image. Crazy. The original large language model architecture, the attention model, was created by Google. But all the models I've shown you now with ChatGPT, they're from OpenAI. OpenAI was originally founded as an open organization to advance like artificial intelligence research and make the world a better place. However, they quickly kind of found out that they could really earn some money from this. So the first thing they did is, well, let's not open source all of our models. Let's keep it closed source. And about the non-profit thing, well, we kind of made it a limited profit company now. So the first couple of billion will go to Microsoft, and after that we will make money. So yeah, they did it really smart. Like, they went to all the companies and they said, well, we're making a better world. We're doing it out in the open. Can you please give us all your data? Yeah, sure. So one of the first things, Twitter, the entire Twitter feed, like every tweet went to OpenAI. The first thing Elon Musk did when he bought Twitter was stop that. Like, one day later, he stopped like the floodgate to OpenAI, because Elon isn't crazy. He wants his own open source models. He wants his own big data machine. So I'm not saying that's why he bought Twitter, but I think that's why he bought Twitter. Like, just to have this entire catalog of human dialogue and this never-ending stream of sentences to train a model on. Like, that's, to me, sounds like a perfect reason to buy Twitter. And all the other stuff, I don't buy it. But you can really see between Google and Microsoft this AI war that has been started like half a year ago. Microsoft was one of the big investors in OpenAI. They did something really smart. They said, well, here's like a couple of $1 billion. We invested in OpenAI, but you have to run everything on Azure, so it will all come back to us eventually. And the first couple of billions, like the tenfold they invested, they will get from OpenAI anyway, like as a repayment. For some reason, Google, pretty silent. They've got their own large language models, like they invented this, they gave it to the world, but after that, like now we can see if the sound is good, because this is a small presentation from beginning of 2023. And for me, this really kicked off the entire AI war. And they always say that like the presentations Steve Jobs did, they are like the most famous. I think this one is going to be like just as important.
The new chat experience in Bing. I think of this as search with your own personal helper to help you refine your query until you get exactly what you're looking for. This comes in handy for activities like trip planning and shopping research. Let's start with shopping. So I'm going to look for a 65-inch TV. Again, you see our ads at the top, the links on the left, and the answers here on the right. And you can pick whichever you'd like. We give you a good set of answers, but now I want to refine this query. So I can do that by going to chat. Now I can either swipe up with my fingers or look up here at the top of the screen. We have now a new chat scope. And with that, with one click, you are now into chat. Look how beautiful that is. Search to chat, just so seamless. And now we take away all of the content that was in your place, and you focus you on your query. The search box you can't see, now that can take up to 2,000 characters. So you can just talk to it. You can just ask for it. So in this case, let's say I'm going to ask for a gaming optimized TV. All I have to say is, which of these are best for gaming? And we remember all of the context. We know that we're talking about flat screens. We know we're talking about 65-inch TVs. And look how Bing starts to come back. It does all the queries on my behalf. It comes back with a great answer. And I just want to highlight a few things for you. Since we know you're asking about gaming TVs, we pull out, oh, this one has a game optimizer, this has game mode, and so we make that really helpful. I'm on a budget. I'll ask it to adjust it for which one of these is the cheapest. Again, Bing knows the context, and it just goes in and refires the queries. So easy, you just talk to it, and you can refine your shopping experience. And again, we find the prices here. I didn't know you could get a flat screen for under $500, but that's a good deal there on Bing if you're looking for a TV. All right, so we think that's going to make shopping and shopping easier. Let's talk about travel. And before I jump in, I want to kind of just have you remind yourself. When you're going to plan a trip to a foreign country, think about all the things you go through. Travel times. What sites do I want to see? Regulations to observe. Budget. Our research shows on Bing, people spend on average weeks to even months to plan a trip and to use our organizational tools. I'm going to show you how we make that so much easier with the new Bing. I'm traveling to Mexico for my cousin's wedding. And with the new Bing, I now don't have to start with something that's dumbed down, like Mexico City travel tips. I can ask for what I want. First, let me just compare that against what you get in today's search engines. So I'll type in this long query of what I really want. And you get what you expect. Links to go try and find the answer for yourself, right? But we can do much better. Let's try it in the new Bing. So I put in the long query, which is essentially create an itinerary for a 5-day trip to Mexico City for me and my family. And just like that, Bing goes to work. And just take a look at how it starts to compile. It starts with day one, and we put in there, look, arrive in Mexico City, check into your hotel, go check out maybe the Playa de Artes, have some lunch. Then there's day 2. And you see, isn't this just so much better as a starting point? And look, if you want to learn more, if you're like, hey, I don't love these 5 days, no problem. Down there, we have links where you can go and learn more. And we put in some nice touches in there as well. And again, now, let's say business travel changes. Oh, I only have a 3-day. I don't have to go back out there and figure it. I just say, hey, make this a 3-day trip. And Bing reflows that recommendation into a 3-day trip. And now let's just have some fun. Let's say, okay, yeah, I'm still trip planning. We like to shop. Where can I shop?
Let's stop it right there. Like, 2 things. Well, maybe 3. who uses this actually? Who uses Bing? That's the first problem. That's the first problem. They keep calling it Bing. Like, I can't really. It does something to me every time I say Bing. Second, has anybody used this before? Because I actually use it and I like it. I like Bing on Edge. So yeah, that was very hard to say. I'm sorry. But it is actually really useful. Like, actually, it can also write code. Like, you can just ask it to write, I don't know, the same GPA entity, and it can write it as well. Like, so a new thing JetGPT launched was plugins. So before, you just had to trust whatever the model came up with, but now it can browse the internet or, for example, use Wolfram Alpha. So now you can say, how far is it from Chicago to Tokyo? And it accesses an actual knowledge base and it finds the exact right answer. It can use calculators. It can actually do math now for you if it can use Wolfram Alpha. So now you no longer have the problem of hallucinations where it just imagines things like Chicago to Tokyo, something like that. And yeah, web browsing. It can browse the web. I think they disabled it now. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Bing still works. If you ask it Bing, it can browse the web. So this was my example for my Devox presentation. So can you tell me when the CFP opens? It just goes to devox.be, it writes it, it reads it, and it says, well, the 14th of July. That's perfect. Google has its own variant, Google Bard. Initially it was only in the US and the UK. When I was on holiday in Zanzibar, I could use Bard, but in the Netherlands I couldn't, which was really weird. I was a bit underwhelmed. Like, the quality-wise, it's not as good as GPT. But yeah, Google has stuff, and they're working actually on a model which is way smarter, Gemini. They say it's like 5 or 10 times smarter than GPT-4. And they're probably gonna do a big release in November or December. And yeah, they say that's gonna be a game changer. Like, up to now, but Google and Gemini, that's gonna be the next big thing. Who knows? One of the more interesting things, in my opinion, is Llama. Who here has used Llama? Actually, 2 or 3 people. So Llama was released by Meta. They trained their own little model and they shared it secretly with some researchers, and they put out a torrent, and well, you can guess what happens if you share it using a torrent. Yeah, within a couple of days everybody was using the model, and they said, well, okay, fuck it, we're releasing the model open source, anybody can just download the weights and you can run it locally. And that's what they did. For example, Stanford, they took Llama and they did some extra training on top of it to be able, for example, like the normal Llama is just text generation, it generates the next word, but the Alpaca model was made as like a chat, like instructions. You can give it an instruction, it gives an answer. Normally these models don't do that, but if you train it specifically for like instructions, then you can chat to it. And it is, yeah, it just knows if I get some input, I probably need to tell it some output. And this started a whole new movement. Like, people started adopting this, making their own models, putting like their own data in it. For example, like uncensored data. If you want to know how to make a bomb, you can ask GPT. Let's try it. That's always a good like thing.
Work on a list.
So, can you give me the worst swear words? GPT is nice. It doesn't want you to swear. Like, it says, I'm not going to give you swear words. However, what we can do, let's see if we can do that. It's somewhere here, I guess. Is it this one? No. I've got too much crap open, sorry. let's try this. So what I'm doing now is I'm opening a small Python library that's running locally. And now I've got this ChatGPT-like interface. And I can go to model. And here are some of the large language models I've got on this machine. And I've got a lot of them. Just playing around with it, having fun. But for example, this one says uncensored, which is good. Let's load this model, go to chat, make it a little bit nicer for some reason. Oh, it's nice enough. Can you give me the worst swear word? Sorry in advance. This model is now running locally on my machine. Like it doesn't even need an internet connection. I can just, I can turn it off. Should be fine. So this large language model running on my machine is currently typing. It's not the fastest, but eventually we will get, it's probably a longer reply, like there are a lot of swear words. So it doesn't like gradually build up, it just loads all the text and then gives you the text. So if it takes long, that's the reason. Look, it will just tell you, like this is uncensored. You can do fun stuff with this. Bloody hell, yeah, that's really awful. Let's get it off the screen because that's. What else do we have? Like, I've got Code Llama, for example, which is a llama model specifically to generate code. We can load that, and let's see. Can you write hello world in Java? Maybe this works. Never tried it. It also changed the interface for no particular reason. Hello? I think it's broken. Oh, it is broken. No model loaded. No idea. Demo effect. Let's go back. But yeah, there are more and more models being released. This is already like a month old, so probably 20 new libraries on top there. But like companies are constantly improving these models, making them better, more data, larger, more specific towards coding or in general as an AI assistant, for example. And people are taking this, running it on their MacBooks, running it even on like Raspberry Pis, and making their own, like, why is Siri so incredibly dumb? Like, a year ago, Siri was like the best tool you could have, but if you compare it to these large language models, it's really dumb. Like, we should have a much better version from Apple already. I'm not sure why it takes so long. Who here has used GitHub Copilot? So that's already a couple of more people. So what can you do with Copilot? Well, you start typing your code, and instead of it knowing that you have to put in a name somewhere, it just gives you like the entire implementation of the method, which is already pretty good. But using these large language models, we can do much better, and that's also what Copilot is doing. So they want to integrate this fully into your IDE. So when you have your code, you can just chat and you can ask it things about your code. So for example, can you explain this code? Or can you refactor this? And it can go through your entire code base and do these changes for you. This is coming. This is really powerful. So it's no longer just code completion, it's going to be like interwoven into your complete IDE. And this is very powerful. Yeah. Oh, also it writes your own commit messages. Like it knows what it did, so it can write a commit message. Perfect. I always forget that. So that's coming. That's really interesting. One of the other cool things people are creating is stuff like AutoGPT. Who knows about AutoGPT or other stuff? Okay, cool. So what you can do is you can give it a goal. In this case, can I highlight? Maybe not. In this case, the goal, it says, first you give it the name, so it gives the name ChatGPT, and then it says, I want you to make a recipe for an upcoming event. And now GPT itself starts spawning agents, and it's talking to itself. So it gives itself instructions like, I want you to go out and find an upcoming event. And it creates a list of upcoming events. It saves the list to a file. Then it queries itself, okay, what kind of recipes can you generate for this? And it generates some recipes. And it's all like automatic. You give it a goal, and it starts querying itself, and it starts using itself as a tool, and eventually it outputs a recipe, and then it quits. So in this case, it says, well, I'm done. I've written it in this and this directory, and my task is finished, and it stops. So cool. There are other stuff as well. So now we've only looked at text and code, but there are way cooler models. For example, OpenAI Whisper. Who has heard about Whisper? Okay. What it can do is I'm going to play some audio, and it can transcribe this audio. So I have a hard time following it in English, but it's like this transcription is perfect.
This is the Micro Machine Man presenting the most midget miniature motorcade of Micro Machines. Each one has dramatic detail, terrific trim, precision page out, plus incredible Micro Machine pocket playsets. There's a police station, fire station, restaurant, service station, and more. Perfect pocket portables to take any place. And there are many miniature playsets to play with, and each one comes with its own special edition Micro Machine vehicle and fun fantastic features that miraculously move. Raise the voltage at the airport marina, man the gun turret at the army base, clean your car at the car wash, raise the toll bridge. And these playsets fit together to form a Micro Machine world. Micro Machine pocket playsets, so tremendously tiny, so perfectly precise, so dazzlingly detailed, you'll want to pocket them all. Micro Machines and Micro Machine pocket playsets sold separately from glue. The smaller they are, the better they are.
I would have a hard time transcribing this, like let alone an AI. And it does this perfectly. Like from now on, every meeting should just have this running in the background and mail you the text afterwards. Or a summary, even better.
Maybe short interruption, but we have it automatically in the current project, and it's really bad if you are not a native speaker.
Why is it bad?
It's not catching the mispronunciation. It's not catching bad words because it's a non-native speaker. If you make a slight error in the pronunciation, it will catch another word.
Yeah.
So I tried reading those transcripts, and it's really bad.
Yeah, but I've tried Whisper. And Whisper is really good.
Okay.
Like, and there are even better models being released. Like, that's why Conformer 1 is also a couple of months old already, and it can do stuff like Elmo.
Good morning! Hi, it's Elmo! Time to wake up, sleepyhead! Come on, rise and shine!
This,
Elmo loves the
so
morning.
even weird
In the morning,
voices
there's
and
so many things.
yeah, shut up. So even weird voices and cartoon voices, it can understand like very well. Yeah. Just give it a couple of months, it will probably get better. And yeah, if I can just skip meetings and get a summary in my email, perfect. In 2021, they will also release Clip. Who has heard about Clip? Oh, still more people than I imagined. Like most people know about DALL-E, but Clip itself, not. So what is Clip? So there used to be like ImageNet, ResNet, which is like an old school image recognition classifier. You can give it images from of bananas, and it will say, well, yeah, that's a banana. But as soon as you do other stuff, like give it green bananas, it already drops. If you give it cartoon images of bananas, it has a hard time recognizing that as bananas. And especially if you go to sketches and other stuff, because these things are still bananas, but yeah, it scores really bad. Clip itself is based, again, on the transformer model, same architecture, really good scores across the board. And this was just the first step, like recognizing stuff in images. The second thing is, what if we have some random noise and we say, which parts of this random noise make an avocado chair? And then you iterate again, and you say, this noise looks a bit more like an avocado chair, but can you give the best avocado chair you have in this noise? And from this noise, you can generate images. Again, 2021, not a lot of people noticed. These are not the best images. Like, sure, they are avocado chairs, but they're pretty crap. 1 year later, DALL-E 2 was released. And then people started to realize, wow, this is like, could be a photograph of a teddy bear. And I'm pretty sure this is completely made up because nobody is putting like these things in. This is amazing. And this year, or even 2022, Midjourney was released. It's getting way better. I'm having a hard time. In these examples, I'm having a hard time even noticing this is not a real person. This is, well, yeah, it's not a real cat. I knew that. But like, this is photorealistic. Like, we've crossed that boundary. I've also got that running locally. Let's take a look. Because that's one of the fun things of Stable Diffusion. You can run it on a MacBook. Let's see. It's not fast. There you go. Yeah, so like I said, Stable Diffusion is one of these things you can just download the model and run it. And in this case, yeah, text to image. We can, without having an internet connection, generate images. What do we want to generate? Anything.
Avocado making a handstand.
In a suitcase t-shirt.
Let's see. I've got the settings turned down low because of speed. You can generate much higher quality images. That's not a handstand. But you can see, like, it's clearly an avocado. So, avocado-ish. What the heck? Not that good, not that good. Prompting is hard. Like, finding the right prompt to get a decent image, hard. But, for example, these images, on the first slide, I generated these on my local machine using Stable Diffusion. So that works very well. If you want a cartoon, perfect. We were somewhere here. Oh, you can also use ControlNet, where you have an image and you turn it into a different image. Not sure why I needed to show my own face there. So that's Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion can run locally on your machine. Google has Google Imagen, and this was the next step in the image generation revolution, but we've kind of already passed that with the previous examples. Like, it can generate text, and it does it perfectly. This is something DALL-E still has problems with. If you ask it to generate text, it's mostly gibberish. And if you look at the example with the glass duck, this really blew my mind. Like, it generates an image and it generates the duck, and you can see the reflections and the diffusion. That's really next level. Another example about the differences between DALL-E and Imagen. If you ask DALL-E to print out Hello World, it kind of fails every time. It makes up letters and puts them in random orders. And Imagen, Google's image generation tool, which we can't access, it's all research and probably coming with Gemini, but nobody knows. Yeah, does that perfectly. And these again, these models are slowly making our way into tools as well. For example, Adobe has Firefly, where you can start editing with a prompt. And all these things are just much easier. Like normally you would have to cut out the bird and you would need to resize stuff, and now you just slap things together. Done. And Photoshop has the same thing. For example, outpainting, which is something also the models can do. So if you have the Mona Lisa, just give me the rest. There's no rest, but this is what the rest could be. Well, pretty convincing. Using ControlNet, we can do other cool stuff. So normally, when you generate, you start with noise. In this case, you start with other stuff. So in this case, this is a working QR code. You can actually scan it. No idea. Don't press the link. I don't know where you end up with. But this is just a working QR code as a cool image. I truly don't know what it ends up with. So maybe it's some commercial, I don't know. So you can take any image and just change the style, for example. So again, Google Imagen, very funny image. It's a teddy bear doing the dishes, but it's actually video. Like this AI can imagine video, which is kind of disturbing. And they took it even further. Like Vinaki is an open source research project. They say, well, this was just a single scene. Not a lot is changing there. Can we make larger videos? Yeah, sure. I want the teddy bear that's going for a swim. It dives under this and it meets some fishes, and then it turns into a panda bear. And the quality, pretty crap. But it can actually generate this sequence. And this is all building up to something pretty amazing. Well, now it's turning into a panda bear. And then, I don't know. I'm actually 100% convinced in 2 or 3 years, maybe max of 5, you can just say, Netflix, I want to see an action movie, I'm the hero, I'm gonna save my girlfriend, Spider-Man's there, yeah, like that's what I want to watch, and it can generate this. If you just look at how far we've come from images in 1 year, from images that you could hardly recognize until photorealistic images, this is the next step. Like this is, I'm not even joking. This is 100% going to be there in 2 or 3 years. So, other weird stuff. Put a person in an fMRI scanner, give them this image to look at, and then by reading their brain, generate the image. So next time you're sleeping, like make sure nobody with an fMRI, they're not like portable, but without touching a human, we can read their brains, which is kind of scary. Runway, they also have cool tools. This is basically the same as ControlNet. You can take your cool video, which isn't really cool, but you can make it cool, but just by applying like a style picture. So this is a guy dancing, and he used that bottom image as the style, and you just apply it, and then you get cool stuff. So a lot of people are just experimenting with these tools at home. Really cool. So we've had images, we've had text, which seems dull now, but a year ago it blew my mind. Music, like of course we need music. What if we can have a prompt and generate music? So I want the main soundtrack of an arcade game, fast-paced, upbeat, catchy, electronic, etc. I could see it being used in a game. It's not perfect, but so if you're a creator and you're making like a small indie game, you can generate all the images, you can generate the music, you can generate the code. It's like perfect. Of course, there are good sides and bad sides. One of the bad sides, obviously, is the rise of deepfakes. I don't have a demo yet, but I've actually got this. Where is it? Face Fusion. There's like, of course, no internet connection. Face Fusion is a project I'm currently dying to try out. I haven't got the time yet to do it, but it can do face swaps like instantly without installing, without learning and other stuff. You can just, is there like installation guide, disclaimer, yeah. So there's not an example, but you can just give it a movie, give it a different face, swap it. Which is cool, but scary as well. So there was already a company, I think it was in Korea, where they just had a deep fake of the director and they lost like 37 million. This is Obama.
You see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele.
Surprise.
This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
And this is already more than a year old, so by now you probably won't even notice anything. This is also scary. Steve Jobs talking about COVID, which happened after he died.
Undoubtedly, the
Wait.
See,
Hello?
Undoubtedly, the biggest global event that occurred in 2020 was the COVID-19 pandemic. It has affected millions of people worldwide and brought about significant changes in the way we live, work, and interact with one another.
Like, he's never said those words. He was dead. And if you think, well, it's bad for him because Steve Jobs, there are like millions of hours of interviews with him online, so there's a lot of data to train on. You need 3 seconds. Like if somebody calls you and they say, hello, who's there? And they hang up, they could have already cloned your voice. It's getting there. And then they can use that voice to call your parents and ask for money, for example. Like we are getting there. And this is kind of a dangerous thing. Luckily, you can also do cool things. So using this same audio cloning tool running locally on my machine. Let's see if I can find it. I made like a small Rick and Morty cartoon, which is fun and light. I can show that. Ah, there he is.
not so fast.
All of this is also AI generated.
Really missed the deluxe tickets?
Not so fast, Morty.
You know, there is still a lottery. You and I will get lucky, right? Because OpenValue needs to be there, like we always do.
It's still a lottery, Rick.
It's a lottery for you, Morty. But I'm a hacker, Morty. A hacker. I will get those tickets, I tell you. Do you trust me? Have I ever let you down? Run around and desert you?
Like, you could also use it for cool stuff. So I made that like during our hackathon a week ago, which was really fun. So what else do we have? Office work. Perfect. Microsoft Office is gonna be so much better when you have this. for example, write like a product statement and then say, generate a 10-slide presentation for me. Perfect. Like they're actively building this. This isn't the reality yet, but they want to release this later this year, maybe next year. I already caught myself like 2 weeks ago for a big bank in the Netherlands. We had to write like a business proposal. I think 90% of it was generated using AI. And like we had a small one-pager. We made like a 10-page offer, and then we sent it, and they probably got a 10-page offer, and they said, well, can you please summarize it for me? So I don't know what the heck we're doing, but the bank loved it, we love it, so we got the assignment. Kind of crazy. But yeah, in a couple of years, we'll all be generating all this bullshit and using AI to make it small again and actually be readable. Meta has also made a cool AI neural network that's called SAM, and you can it can separate things, which is always like I've done quite a lot of image editing, and one thing you always are doing are like tracing out stuff and copy pasting. SAM can do this instantly, so you can just say draw the cats, and it can just say, well, these are the cats, and you can click them on and perfect. Yeah, give it an image, click somewhere, and it will tell you what it is. And actually, because yeah, now we've seen everything. We've seen like text, we've seen video, we've seen images, we've seen audio. What if we combine all of this together? And still, this is pretty crap. In a couple of years, this will be fantastic. This script was written by ChatGPT. It's text-to-video AI and text-to-speech AI, and then you get something like this.
This primitive world, Earth, what do they have that could possibly stand against the Empire? This giant supply station must be an advanced military outpost, the Wall of Mart. Ah, I see. They grow their warriors to immense proportions. Most impressive. Perhaps we should recruit these giants for our own army, or not. And look at these vast stockpiles of high-calorie sustenance. Surely they fuel their oversized defenders with these. I can't imagine the sugar rush they must experience on the battlefield. A whole section dedicated to miniature replicas of their heroes. How quaint. I wonder if they have a little me. Oh yes, they do, complete with a tiny choking action. These domestic contraptions appear to be more advanced than I expected.
Again, compare this with the dolly images that we had last year and the photorealistic images we have now, and extract this a couple of years into the future, and this is going to be amazing. Let's start a discussion.
I don't know if you heard about it or not. There is a 24/7 kind of reality show on Twitch where everything is video and audio is generated in real time, and two persons are talking there and living their life in the apartment.
Yeah, it's going to be so crazy. All the things that are now coming out, and it's accelerating. It keeps accelerating, like faster and faster. All these things are released, and yeah. You had a question? Oh, no. Who had a question?
Say the one that they on strike,
the writers,
the
yeah.
writers.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Like, this is going to be the end of like creativity almost. If you just, you can now just ask for stuff and you get like 100 suggestions for stuff. And that creativity side is it's really amazing.
But what's the amazing thing about it? I don't think it's quite that amazing because it's trained on real data, so it's not really creative. It's just combining stuff
but is
which
it?
is already there, right?
Yeah, but it's not. Like you can give it like entirely new things that it's never read on the internet, and it can just reply like it's the normalest thing. You can ask it, give me 50 new conspiracy theories that are like completely new, and it will come up with original ideas that hasn't been. Maybe it's somewhere on the internet, but I doubt it. Like you can ask it for specific conspiracy theories about rubber penguins, and it will tell you.
Yeah, obviously, because they just use some kind of string substitution where you just replace rubber penguins with, I don't know, white supremacists, and then here you have your the theory, right?
But it doesn't, because the conspiracy theory it will come up with, they have something to do with penguins, and they have something to do with the Arctic, and like, it really ties everything together, and it has these interactions, and it knows the context of all these things.
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes more creative than humans can. Like, this can find stuff that humans, we also do the same thing, like you said. We also do, like, you go to school, you go to art school, and then you learn about great artworks that have been created, and you base your style on that.
Yeah.
Like, we are also copying machines. But this is just so much better.
It's due to sheer computational power, maybe.
Yeah.
But on that point, something that I'm a little afraid of, let's say, because while we're discussing this,
yeah.
the only thing that the large language models do is they ask themselves pretty much what is the most probable next word.
Yep.
And then there's some sort of sampling mechanism. Am I only taking the most probable word, or do I sample among the 10 most probable words or something?
Yep.
And especially in coding, I think it's very good, but if I think about it, it reads the code that's on the internet, and I think most of the code on the internet is probably shit, right? So if we use AI for the rest of our lives to write all of our code, then we're pretty much stuck on the level of code that the humanities at right now in aggregate.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case, and that's the weird thing. Like, there's a lot of spelling errors on the internet, but ChatGPT is good and it doesn't have any spelling errors.
Because the average is that we don't all make the same spelling errors, and so the average,
But
that word is never the most probable word.
do we all make the same programming errors?
Probable, right?
Do we all make the same programming errors?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Have you looked at Stack Overflow? Of course we do.
But there's always someone correcting you, right?
Yeah, but I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's, the way we code right now. There's this. I think the danger is this sort of locked-in effect. That there's a way we do things now, and by using AI, we lock ourselves into that. That if someone comes up with a completely new programming paradigm that's superior, it will probably never see the light of day because Copilot cannot do anything for me with this new program. So we're just locked in what we have right now.
Okay.
And isn't it true that a couple of months ago there was a new release of the model and it actually became dumber?
Yeah, but I think that's
effect, or
no. I think that's that's mostly performance and cost-wise. So they just turned the model down, so it runs way quicker with a little bit of quality loss.
It apparently also got dumber after a few hours of running. So in the time it was running, it learned to become worse. So it can't really be about cost.
I don't think the models actually. I don't think the models learn. The models have like a fixed weight, which they deploy and run. So the only context that changes is like the history in text.
But if they learn from the context of each session, they will get better. Or they will be on the level of the people that ask questions.
Yeah, that's what you might think, but it doesn't seem to be true.
Okay.
And that's the weird thing. Like, so for example, they're now training large language models with large language models, which is also like that sounds like it will never become better, but they still see like changes. That's the same thing with they're now using the same techniques they're using with AlphaGo.
Yeah.
Where if you start out and you give it a lot of training data, it will get stuck. But if you then say, well, yeah, go out or start with nothing and be creative, and just by playing itself and learning, it becomes better and better and better.
Isn't this the same as evolution? I think it was evolutionary training, right?
Yeah.
Which given
it's very similar.
A good goal, it will progress, but given a dumb goal, it will never progress.
Yeah, and exactly. But and then of course, how do you define a good goal?
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of training. Like in ChatGPT, you can say, "Did you like the answer? No. If you don't like the answer, it can
Yeah.
For future trainings, it can be adjusted.
Yeah.
What's the question?
So in the next 12 to 18 months, right, where do you see these capabilities of generative AI coming to light in the first place? Not in the big players who generate the models, right, but the second tier companies, the non-tech companies, right? And
So there are a couple of things happening. So first, there seems to be it seems to be leveling off now. It cannot continue in the same pace. That to me is a bit crazy. So it seems to be leveling off. I think a lot of companies are actually working on incorporating this and the APIs into their products. So for example, the example of Microsoft Office and IntelliJ, for example, they are soon, a couple of weeks, they're going to release their AI assistant, and this is going to be completely interwoven into your code. Like you can just chat and it will do things for you. That's going to be like the biggest change in the next couple of months. That's going to be like products will come out with AI and large language models baked in. After that, yeah, I think like I said, like Netflix, but real time with generated actors, that kind of stuff is going to be crazy in a couple of years. After that, no idea. I think that we will have AGI soon, which I never knew that was going to happen. And that's mainly because I've seen the world building capabilities. So it really understands the world around us. It understands how objects work. And it can explain, like, there's this famous, I'm not sure if I can find it, but there's this famous interview, and someone from Google, a woman, she says, these models, sure, they're smart, they read a lot, and they can like repeat whatever you ask it, but it can never understand, like, if you have a table and a tablecloth, and on the table is a laptop, and you pull the tablecloth, that the laptop itself will move closer to you. And there's like instantly, then it switches to ChatGPT, and you ask the question, and it will just explain what happens. Because for the model, it knows what a table is, it knows what a tablecloth is, it knows that if something is on the tablecloth, and you move the tablecloth, the object will also move. That to me is really amazing. The fact that it understands all these things. And it really understands it. It understands that if you pull it too hard, things will fall. This world building capability is really, yeah.
Does it really understand this? Or is it just, it doesn't assume likelihoods that this is the place, because out of all the simulated text, it actually can assume that the tablecloth is on the table. So it doesn't create a model in itself of the consciousness and everything that is perceived and fed into that. It's just that the likelihoods that has been trained on by so much internet text.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, I'm undoubtedly really understand.
I've become convinced that it actually understands these concepts. Because you can change stuff, and you can just make it as crazy as possible that you're pretty certain it has never read something about a tablecloth on a car, for example. Or maybe it did, but let's put it on, I don't know. You can change all these things out, and it can still understand the context, and it can still understand the physics about what's happening. And this to me is really crazy. You had a question?
Yeah, it was very similar, because I was wondering, is like, does it know what a tablecloth is, or does it know how a tablecloth is being used?
Yeah, no, but and the thing is, so instead of a tablecloth, what else can we use? There is a T-shirt on top of the car.
No, I trust you that it will return the right answer.
Yeah.
The question is, does it know what these things are, or does it know how these words relate to each other? Because they were related to each other in the training data.
Yeah. So first of all, that is true. That is one of the reasons why this transformer model is so powerful. Because one of the things that it does is word embeddings. So back 5 years ago, if you wanted to train like a large language model, you would give it words. And these models work differently. These work with vectors. And these vectors are similar if they have similar traits. So every word gets turned into a multi-dimensional, like 2000 dimensional vector, which is pointing somewhere. And you can do stuff like give it the vectors of the queen died. And you can, for example, subtract the word queen and add the word king. And it knows the difference. Like, it knows that it's very simple. You can also give it like, when you have the word king, you give it the word daughter, then it will end up with princess. Like, it knows the relationship between these things. And and the way they did this is that they can train the model and they can say, well, you're close. Normally with words, you cannot do that. Like, the difference between sad and that's not a good word. The difference between happy and a hippie, like, it's a single letter, but they're two completely different words. They have completely different meaning. So if the model returns, I am hippie, doesn't mean the same thing as I'm happy. But if it says I am energetic or I am happy, well, that's close. Or I'm glad and I'm happy, those things are really close. So the model is like pretty close to the actual thing. The king lives in a castle or the king lives in a closet. Those things are like in words pretty close, but in meaning like very far apart. So when you start training it on meaning, on word vectors, which are like close to each other, that's what really boosted this entire thing as well. But I still believe that it either it understands it and it understands like the model, or, and this is equally likely, it just doesn't really matter. The fact that it can do these things is enough proof for me. Even if it's just predicting the next word, we are also probably predicting the next word. Like, I don't have a grand plan standing here, I'm just telling you this right now. Yeah?
Okay, yeah, thanks. You will be here. Thanks.